Hello and welcome to Master Integrator, where today we're telling the story of the qualification this industry very nearly lost. I'm your host, Paul Skelton. A lot of you may be surprised to learn that there has been a Certificate 3 sitting on the National Register for our industry for years. But no training organisation ever offered it. As a result, not one person enrolled in it, and it was horribly out of date. So the decision was made to remove it. What stopped that from happening wasn't a committee, and it wasn't me. It was about 150 people filling in a survey a week before Christmas 2025, and one email from a person with a disability who couldn't find the right integrator to make their home work. This is how close we came to having nothing at all. Before we get into this episode, a quick thank you to the brands that make Master Integrator possible. This episode is brought to you by ADI Global, formerly Snap One. They're your one-stop partner for professional integration. ADI brings together powerhouse brands like Control4, Arachnus, Binary and Strong, along with a carefully curated range of distributed products, all under one roof, and they back it up with genuine integrator-first support, from system design through to installation and beyond. They're focused on helping you deliver smarter, more reliable projects, because when you win, they win. If you want to learn more, give the team a call on 1800 990 548. We're also supported by Blue Sound and its Blue OS platform. Blue OS is an audiophile-grade multi-room audio platform built for discerning listeners and custom integration professionals alike. It supports high-resolution, 24-bit, 192 kHz audio, so you're delivering exceptional sound quality. And it scales cleanly across both residential and commercial projects. There are no mandatory cloud accounts, so Blue OS can run entirely on a local network. That means a secure, privacy-focused solution with reliable local control. Blue Sound is exclusively available in Australia through Amber Technology. This episode is also brought to you by Somfy. If you're working on premium residential or hospitality projects, the Son S40 RS485 is worth knowing. It's a whisper-quiet, digitally wired motor for interior window coverings, built on an open protocol. That means it works with leading platforms including Crestron, Control4 and Dynalite. Visual feedback confirms every step of setup and programming, so you can configure from a distance. Precision engineering for spaces where the details matter. Visit somfy.com.au to learn more. So here's a number worth sitting with. 0. That is how many registered training organisations had the Certificate 3 in custom electronics on scope. It is therefore also how many students were enrolled in it. Hell, nobody in our industry even knew it existed. When a training product looks like that, a Jobs and Skills Council is required to remove it. And that process had already started. My guests today are the two people most responsible for it not being shut down. Paul Vivian has spent 43 years in this industry, and the back half of that teaching it. Christina Bradley is at Powering Skills Organisation, the Jobs and Skills Council that owns our part of the training package. 2 years ago, they started a conversation with me. What has come out at the other end is a Certificate 3 in Systems Integration, a Certificate 4, and a set of skill sets for people already on the tools. It's drafted and it's nearly signed off. But the qualification is not the interesting part. The interesting part is what it needs from us next and how little time we have to give it. This is Master Integrator. Here's Christina Bradley and Paul Vivian. Christina, Paul, welcome to Master Integrator.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for acknowledging that. I was waiting for something.
I was waiting for her to do it first.
That was a pregnant pause. I thought I'd feel that.
And I think we're off and running, basically. So, let's get into it. Obviously, you're here to talk about the future of the industry and where we're headed. And we've got some big things happening over the next couple of weeks, next couple of months. So I wanted to, first of all, I think everyone listening to this will already know who other Paul is. You've been on the show before. You kind of just turn up to things. But Christina, why don't you tell people a bit about yourself and a bit about who you are and how you got to where you are today.
My name is Christina Bradley, and I'm the Director of Training Product Development at Powering Skills Organisation, which is one of 10 jobs and skills councils. We look after the energy sector. How I got here, I worked in the legal industry for the first part of my life in law enforcement, and I went into teaching at TAFE Queensland for 10 years, the justice course and the legal services course there, and I went into educator capability roles and product compliance roles for the last couple of years with skills tech, looking after the electrotechnology and utility qualifications there. And I really love education. I love what it does for students. I love what it does for the community. And when given the opportunity to improve the curriculum for the workforce so that we have great skills into the future, I was like, hell yeah, sign me up. That's how I got here today.
That seems like a bit of a shift to go from law enforcement to teaching now to electrotechnology. Has it been much of a learning curve?
Massive learning curve. I still get confused sometimes when you talk real technical, but I'm not afraid to ask a question or go, what do you mean by that? Which comes right back to my law enforcement days where you could ask questions like that. Go, what do you mean? And clarify that for me. So a lot of the skills are transferable and has given me good stead to get up that learning curve.
Speaking of getting confused, other Paul, I'm going to come to you. Obviously, yeah, like I said, a lot of people know who you are, but do you want to give us kind of a little bit of a recap of how you got involved with this side of the market and how your life led to me?
Where do I start? All started with an innocent email saying how. It seriously was. I've been in the security industry for about 43 years now. Electronics and electrical. Most people know I've worked around the world designing systems and stuff like that. Came back to Australia and just decided to go into teaching because it was a lot easier. And then had the privilege, I'll use it as a privilege, we all agree with that, having a meet up with you. And then we looked at why electricians need to be upgraded to hold their ACMA registrations, which everybody still needs to have, by the way. And then it just came in, well, how do we make system integration work? And at that stage, the JSCs were out and they said, look, what do we do with all of these old units or these old qualifications? And there was one that hadn't been used for a long time. So that's where I got in touch with Christina. And then that was 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago now. And we're now to the point where it's about to be launched. So that's how it all happened, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, Christina, then I guess building on that, as Paul said, I mean, we sat down and we said, okay, well, the industry needs some form of formal pathway in, which is great to have a conversation about it. But then as someone whose kind of role it is to make sure all of this happens, how do you navigate that pathway from saying, we want this, to you then saying, great, this is how we do it?
That's a great question. And it was a conversation with Paul saying, Christina, we want this skill. We had a qualification on scope, and part of our role is to look at the viability of maintaining those types of qualifications. And it was really clear that the current version of the qualification was not being used. And talking to yourself and Paul, Vivian, it was the skill development is out of date in relation to that qualification. And if we update it, then we will use it. While I deeply appreciate the skills and the knowledge and contacts that you two have, I needed more evidence than just the Pauls telling me that we want this. And so we started with CEDIA in particular, and we developed a survey that was sent out to your members, and we got an overwhelming response from the members. There was about 150 responses, I believe, all of them saying, if you update the qualification, we will use it. And so based on that evidence, it was clear that the industry was really calling out for this. Through our workforce planning functions at PSO, we, knowing that the industry is becoming more automated and integrated and all those wonderful things through the technology, there is a real gap in terms of that skill development in the sector. There was a particular email that came through from a person who is lovely and has a disability, and the email showing how difficult it is for someone who is a vulnerable member of our community to get the right tradespeople in to support them in retrofitting their home in particular. And the number of tradespeople that they needed to do the work. So that in itself, when you think about the vulnerability of those people, and if we had the opportunity to fix that through a qualification and upskill people to do multiple technical roles when they're there for vulnerable members of our community, I think that's only a good thing moving forward for us as a society.
So you've touched on assistive technology, which we will come back to. With this, though, you mentioned that there was a qualification that existed. That was the bane of my existence for many, many years. I had very loud discussions, let's call them that, with certain people about this because it was going nowhere, never been offered, no one ever sat the course. Yeah. So I think it's important to really kind of explain to people, how close were we to having nothing at all?
Very close. So through a project we did last year, one of our jobs at Jobs and Skills Councils is to review the enrolments and usage of qualifications. The Certificate 3 in Custom Electronics, which is currently what is available, has no RTOs on scope and no enrolments. So based on those figures alone, as a Jobs and Skills Council, we were going to remove it from the National Register. So in terms of having no skills available for your industry, very, very close until you guys stepped in and said, hold on, let's fix it, and then it will work for us. So yeah, super close.
So I guess then, where are we today?
Oh, in utopia, mate. So we, through the UEE training product review that PSO is undertaking, which is a massive piece of work of looking at the whole training package for the electrotechnology sector, we have established 10 SME groups, so subject matter expert groups. One of those is particular to systems integrators because you had so many people that wanted to be involved in that review, and so we pulled you out into your own little forum because it's so niche, and we really needed to drill down and make it work. And through that group of mostly industry experts, we have been able to redesign the Certificate 3, and it's going to be called a Certificate 3 in Systems Integration, a Certificate 4, and a bunch of skill sets to upskill, cross-skill, or reskill current tradespeople in the sector. So it is absolutely brilliant to where we are at. We've drafted it all, and we're about to sign off on that and get it out for initial review firstly, and then next year, all going well, we'll have it up onto the National Register for RTOs to put on scope.
Awesome. And so you mentioned there that there is an SME involved in this as well. Obviously, it's not just Paul and myself. So
no.
I guess, did you want to kind of outline who's at the table, who's actually part of this process?
Yeah, so we've got employers, we've got a VIXA at the table, and we've got CEDIA at the table. We've got a regulator sitting in on that group as well. Um, and then we've got Paul from an RTO lens. There's a couple of trainers in the room as well. So it's a real cross sector of industry, regulators, the union, the ETU union sitting in there as well, and an RTO. So really, a Jobs and Skills Council is required as a tripartite type of arrangement. So ensuring that we connect employers and the training for organisations and getting the right information on how it works in industry and writing that into training products so that the training products meet industry standard is super important. So we've been very lucky in that SME group to have all of those people at the table working together.
So, other Paul, I want to come over to you. As Christina said, obviously, there's a lot of work that's happened in updating the content because it really wasn't fit for purpose beforehand. And you've done most of the grunt work on this. So, I mean, how much work has it taken to update the content? And I guess just explain that process of making sure that what we've got now is current and what the industry is working on now.
It was a matter of really looking at what we had and then what is current, what is fit for purpose. And a lot of what we had was just old technology and we just don't use it anymore. Yes, we have to still cater for legacy, and there's still a lot of legacy systems out there. But as far as updating it, it was just a matter of looking at what we do now, especially in the assistive technology space. That was something that we've never had before, and we, from what I can see, we are leading the world in what we're doing because there's nobody else doing it. So starting at the Cert 2 level, which is the high school vet and school program, we've actually got a dedicated unit which is now able to be offered to the vet sector, in the school system, to introduce them into what is smart technologies, and then leading it up into the Cert 3 and then advancing into the Cert 4. And that's what the purpose of the SME group was to come up with drafts, ideas of where we need to be, what we're going to do. Then it was Christina and her team looking at what I produced and turning it into, well, she would say English, but it was a matter of turning it into what the industry, what the regulations are required, and we have certain systems that we have to follow, the requirements, and then it was a matter of them putting it up to the SME group, letting them make comments, come back, let's redefine it, and we've actually done a lot of work in redefining a lot of it because of the alignment between CEDIA and AVIXA. We've had to make it very much like either residential or commercial, or what was going to be generic in there without going into proprietary systems.
So what else is actually included in this course? Because, I mean, originally there were modules in there that were around digital antenna systems and things like that, which not too prevalent today. We mentioned assistive technology. So what else would a student expect to actually learn about?
So what we've done is through PSO, or through the Powering Skills organisation, we've gone to one of the other JSCs, which is the Future Skills organisation. They look after ICT, the ICT package. And so what we've done is we've looked a lot at what they are doing, and the requirement was we weren't allowed to duplicate, because the problem that we have had in the past is each skills councils basically develop their own product, and there's too much duplication across the UEE, the electrical space, and the ICT space. We actually did have cross units, and it created such a drama when you've got electricians who should be doing one system but they're doing others, and then trying to get them recognised. So it was a matter of just looking at other products. So, for instance, the ACMA portion, for the registration for doing data. We're now pulling that out of ICT, and we're getting rid of what we're doing for UEE. So it's more, you're going to be doing data, fibre, coax and coax is still out there. There's still a lot of legacy systems. You mentioned the digital reception systems. Yes, they've gone. A lot of that is gone now, because when the world upgraded from analog to digital TV, there was a lot of stuff out there, but we've kept the stuff that is relating to IP. So going from free-to-air TV into an IP network, we've actually managed to get that updated on the ICT side and making it applicable for us. We've also got the system design, so we're more looking at it from what a tradesperson needs to do. We've included a lot of things about project management, which is something that has always been a bugbear of mine, where if you're teaching electrical apprentices, for instance, when they finish their apprenticeship, the tradespeople, now they're going to be expected to run jobs. But how do we teach them that? How? So that's why we've included project management as one of the centerpieces of what we do. So you've got a tradie who actually understands how to run a job, not, oops, what do I do now? We've also included a lot of things about ethics, because we're dealing with people's personal lives. And one of the big things with smart home and system integration is we are doing that. So we need to make sure that we handle their information ethically. And that is something that has never been done before. So we've managed to incorporate that. And then incorporating CCTV, access control, normal security systems. How do they integrate together? So working with the other Jobs and Skills Council that looks after the security industry, we're now using their material. So bringing the whole project has been integrating systems. And it was actually one of the people from PSO that actually came up, and let's call it system integration. And that's exactly what we're doing. And it doesn't stop, because it's not just what we do, but it's also the HVAC. It's also batteries. And when you look at it, you think, wow, where do we stop? And we have kind of stopped now, because it's going to get bigger and Ben-Hur. But it's a matter of, what is the purpose behind system integration? What is industry doing? And it doesn't matter whether you're commercial or residential, you are still integrating systems. It's just one might be bigger than the other.
So, Christina, Paul's kind of touched on something there that's always been a massive issue for our industry, and that is because we fall across so many different industries and so many different systems and subsystems. So I'm wondering, from your perspective then, why was this important for the PSO to run point on this project? And then how important and easy or difficult has it been to navigate with the other Jobs and Skills Councils because of the crossover with things like open registration and security?
That's a great question. The reason why it's so important for us to run point on this is because it is, at the end of the day, still electro-technology type technician work that falls within the remit of our Jobs and Skills Council, in terms of we look after that electro-technology sector. It worked well. Like, we didn't really have to kind of go, this is our baby, because we've got the Cert 3 in custom electronics already. So we were able to just run point immediately. But in terms of and it was important to keep it here, because it feeds into this systems integrators, as Paul has mentioned, feeds into so many other areas within the sector that technicians need to be able to be upskilled or cross-skilled to be able to take on the additional system integration work as more and more automation and integration occurs. It is about making sure that the workforce is skilled moving forward, no matter which sector they come from. In terms of working with other Jobs and Skills Councils, it's really easy. With Future Skills or FSO, we reached out and we're like, look, we've got these units. We want to use the ACMA open cabler registration units from the ICT package. And luckily we've got Dominic and Paul works with him really closely. He's looking after the telco area for them. And he works with us really closely. So we're working with them very closely on making sure that those units support both sectors moving forward, so that the duplication is reduced. In terms of the security side of things, we've just been able to inform Build Skills, who is the owners of those products, to say we're incorporating them into the qualification. Do you see any concern with this? Are you updating any of these in the near future that we need to be aware of? The network, I guess, in terms of jobs and skills councils, we work really well together and keep each other informed so that we can import those units, because it doesn't make sense to make your own when they are, fit for purpose units already out there.
For more than 20 years, Connected Magazine has been the leading voice for the Australian AV and custom integration industry, and it continues to hold that position today. Commercial and residential integrators can head to connectedmag.com.au for the latest news, new products, and deeper insight into where the industry is heading. Now, if you're looking for serious design firepower behind your next project, let me introduce you to Colosseum. Colosseum is a white label design and documentation partner built specifically for integrators, specialising in cinema and media room design, lighting control, and automation engineering. And their new Spark program is a big deal. If your vendor is Spark enabled, you can unlock Colosseum design cinemas at nearly half the usual cost. Lower upfront investment, immersive 3D walkthroughs, faster sales conversations. Colosseum really is the design and documentation wingman you didn't know you needed. A lot of people listening to this are probably wondering, where do we go from here? So we're releasing this 17th of August, 2 weeks before Integrate. Mm-hmm. What are those steps that we need to take between now and having that first cohort of students actually enrol in this program?
So some of the things that we're doing at Power and Skills organisation that we'll be working with, particularly Paul, is the next step is really looking at how we implement this project or these qualifications. The issue that you have for your industry right now is that nobody delivers it, and arguably no one holds the qualifications at this moment in time. So from an RTO regulatory perspective, there's this upskilling that you need for educators to ensure that they meet their what we call ASQA, which is the regulator, the Australian Qualification Skills Authority. They regulate RTOs and ensure that they're compliant. So, and one of those compliance is around teacher capability and currency. So the first step is we need to upskill current educators to be able to deliver your qualification. You are working on this in terms of the next step, how do we get these educators? So that's your first step. We are assisting in that space in terms of there's educators out there that have a lot of skills already that will cross over, and it will just be gaps that they need to get upskilled in terms of possibly the technology side of it more so than other areas. So we can assist in that space, and then it's really let's pilot this and see how it works and make sure that that it's fit for purpose for the industry, and then we can tweak it along the way. The other part of that is really, we don't, if you want people to do the Cert 3, traditionally it's an apprenticeship or a traineeship. And so if you want people to go down that path as an industry, we need to start looking at how do we get them onto funding this in each jurisdiction. And so we've been talking to some of the industry training advisory bodies, and we'll be coming back to the peak bodies of this sector to get some letters of support to support those industry training advisory bodies to advocate for these qualifications to be considered being put onto funding lists. So there's some of the things moving forward we need to do in order for this to really take off and fly, as they say.
It's just a matter of, I think right now, it's just a matter of getting support. We've done our bit, and now it's up to industry. The number one thing that we do need is hopefully by now, considering this is coming out on the 17th, hopefully on the 11th, everybody put on their census that you are what was it again?
Smart home technology integrator.
Thank you very much, which is what I did last night when I did mine early. That is really important that we are recognised as an industry standalone, because right now we are treated as either electricians or under the framing, we're actually electronics trades general, and that's just not going to gel. So we need to be recognised as a standalone industry. Once we've got that, then the funding model that Christina's gone through is a matter of just getting letters of support.
When we're talking to the integrators out there on the tools, the employers, what do we actually need them to do? Or are they just in a holding pattern until all of this other stuff happens, and then it's a case of, great, now we can go and get them, qualified and up and running?
Yeah, look, I would say that they're in a bit of a holding pattern due to the qualification being what it is at the moment, and nobody having the new version up on scope. Once we've got the final drafts and we put it out for public and government consultation, which will be early next year, or end of this year, early next year, over the December to March period, is really taking that and as an industry sitting down and starting to map, if you're looking for educators, identifying who in your industry would like to go and get their TAE to deliver, and supporting them in terms of mapping their skills into that qualification, so that once an RTO has it on scope, they've got their TAE, they could go through an RPL process if they wanted to get the qualification. But really what they need to show is currency. And if they're on the tools doing the job every day, if you've done that mapping exercise to show currency, and then they've got their TAE, they're up and running, ready to go. So between now and then, I would say, start to canvass your industry as to who would like to educate people, and which RTOs would like to put this on scope and support those RTOs in terms of getting ready to deliver, because the resources needed to deliver, if you're thinking physical resources, it's to establish a new qualification to deliver, it's quite expensive. So any support that the industry can provide through provide those RTOs with those physical resources allows it to become a quicker transition and uptake.
And what we've done with those two is the way that the system has been written is that the RTOs, or the training organisations, are basically providing the in principle systems. We, as an RTO, that's what we do. We teach you the basics, and then the manufacturers are the ones that will teach you the proprietary systems. So without mentioning names, but if an employer says, I use XYZ products in my home automation, my security, I use this and that, through the arrangements that we have made, is you'll be able to contact the manufacturers and actually get them to do the actual physical training. Because as Christina quite rightly says, running a program like this is a lot of money, and there's no way that you can have an RTO, even a TAFE, to put all this together is a lot of money. So the way it was designed was all around having the manufacturers support, because at the end of the day, the manufacturers are getting to promote their products. But it's a matter of the student is learning all about that particular product. When they get out on the tools, then they know what they're doing. Our job as RTOs is to give you the basic, give you the principles.
So explain that supplier's role a little bit more there, because obviously, as you said, we've had a few conversations with some of the bigger players. But if I know a lot of suppliers who do listen to this, they're probably hearing this thinking, I want to be involved. What do they actually need to do?
So what they need to do is, we've actually had our first meeting we had a while ago, is look at what, once the training package has been agreed to and it's gone through all of its compliance checks and it gets produced, we then look at what we call the performance evidence. And each of those performance evidences, we then go look at the manufacturers and say, your training, we need to map it to this performance evidence. And in some cases, the conversations that we have had so far with some of those big players, it's not much change. But what we need is their training that they are providing, the practical training, needs to meet the training package requirements, the units of competency. Once they're done, then the RTO will then give the student, they've got the basics, and then they go out and they get that extra bit of the proprietary stuff. And then under competency over time, as an RTO was training, then the workplace training that they are doing is then building up that experience to where it can then be signed off. So it's a matter of, we need the manufacturers, especially the AV guys, the audio people, any component of the industry. We need them to come forward and help us, because ultimately they're helping themselves.
So, Christina, I'm wondering, what happens if the support doesn't come through at both levels, either from the association regulatory level, and what happens if we don't get educators or industry buy-in from the contractors?
It's a really good question, and it's a really sad answer I have to give you. If you don't get industry buy-in and industry support in terms of upskilling educators to be able to deliver the qualification for you, or upskilling of technicians to deliver, if industry doesn't buy into this by supporting the establishment of the delivery of the qualification for RTOs, what will happen is that RTOs, there's a potential that it won't get on scope because they don't have the capacity to do this qualification. There's a lot of research out there that all the jobs and skills councils have just finished, but it's pretty clear, and it's been a wicked problem for the vet sector for a very long time now, is that we don't have enough educators. And so the educators that RTOs have on staff are at capacity delivering what they've currently got. So to ask them to deliver additional qualifications without the resources is a big ask for an RTO who's already stretched. Then if you don't get the funding attached to that, again, it becomes what the student and or the employer have to pay upfront for the delivery or the skilling of the staff, which can be quite expensive when we're talking especially of a Cert 3 with 20, I think it's about 26 units of competency. You're looking at close to $20,000 to put somebody through that minimum. When you start to think in those numbers, without any financial support via apprenticeship funding or what have you, that's a barrier that will stop people from coming in and doing the course. then the other barrier for the RTO is if we don't have trainers and if we don't have industry supporting us with resources to put that on scope, the cost of developing learning and assessment resources and getting the physical resources is, huge. Yeah, I can't stress the industry needs to be a part of the solution.
So, in your mind, who makes a good educator then? So, if people are listening to this and rather than thinking someone else should do it, if they're convinced that they want to go and become an educator, who should it be? Is it how long should they have been in the industry? Is it an employer? Is it someone who's looking to get off the tools? And then how difficult is it for them to then get their TAE?
Look, I won't comment on the TAE. The TAE is the TAE and it belongs to the department. It's not hard. It's just something that you've got to wrap your head around, right? It's a Cert 4. If you haven't been studying for a while, going back and learning is difficult at the best of times, right? But once your head's in it, you're good to go. What makes a great educator is someone who's passionate about the industry. And if you've been in the industry for 5 years, 10, 30 years, if you are really passionate about your industry and passing on that knowledge to the next generation of tradespeople, then you are that person. If you love teaching people already about your industry and, passing down that knowledge to the next, you get a new person on staff and you mentoring them and coaching them, then that's the person that you want to be a teacher or an educator. The educator needs to be, wants and deeply loves teaching other people how to be awesome. I fundamentally believe it's not about teaching them, like Paul said, the brand specifics types of things. It's teaching people the fundamental basics of what is a good tradesperson. When they go out into the workforce, that's the employer's job to, teach them the ways of working with them. But an educator needs to teach people how to love learning. And if you are that type of person, then your students will love coming to your class and participating in your class. So I think it comes down to you have a natural curiosity of you love investigating, you love learning, and you love passing on that knowledge to other people.
And also too, as an educator in this sector, you don't have to leave the tools. You could just say, look, I am an AV person. I just want to teach the the AV portion of it. So you just give up one day of work and you get paid for that day as an educator and you're still on the tools. So it's a matter of finding the right, as Christina said, it's the people with passion. But if your passion is a particular sector of what we do, then that's who we need. And if it takes 12 people to run that course, you bring them in bit by bit by bit. And that way you're not coming off the tools. You don't have to give up. Most of the tradies that are converting to educators are the ones that just we can't do it anymore because our backs are gone or our knees are gone, or and that's really what it is. You're just not physically capable of doing it, but you have that passion still that you can still go ahead and do it. Now, as an educator, also in the vet sector, you still got to be actually involved in industry. So going out and spending a couple of days designing something with someone else, that's industry engagement. And that's also that's the other thing you've got to consider.
I think an educator, it's the best job in the world. I've been off the tools as an educator for 6 years now, and I still think that it is the best job in the world. You get to see people grow in knowledge and in confidence, and I think that's the best part of educating is seeing someone grow in confidence and know that they can do something that they didn't think that they could do. And there's a lot of pride in that, that you have supported somebody to get skills and to get a job, like that flow-on effect into economically for themselves and their families, getting good jobs, and that that social impact for them and the people around them is such a wonderful feeling, and to know that you're part of that, it's a privilege to be an educator, I believe.
Watching them get that little light bulb moment when they go, "I get it," and then you come back and look at them 2 years later, and it's like, wow, you're actually now doing it and actively working in that sector. I'm proud because that's what it does. It makes you proud of what you do.
I still follow some of my students. They're on LinkedIn, and they're in, like, because my teaching was justice. They're in corrections, and now they're moving up. They're in customs. They're in policing. They're in child protection. Some of them have gone off to the military. It's just incredible to watch where they're going and what they're doing. And some are in law, and yeah, it's pretty special considering day one they were like, I don't know anything about the legal industry, and now they're just off and flying. It's pretty special.
So, Paul, I'll ask you then, because Christina's been a politician about it. TAEs. Are they all the same? Is a TAE a TAE, or are there? Put it this way: where does someone go from our industry to get a TAE? Where do they look? What do they actually?
Anywhere, Paul. Any RTO that has a TAE on scope.
Okay, politician.
Leave me alone. Leave me alone. I was coming to that. Okay, thank you for the question. It was a great question. TAE is tedious, as Christina quite rightly said. It's a matter of, if you've never gone back and learnt, it can be a bit tedious. As somebody who actually delivers the TAE, yes, it can be for those who don't understand or go in with an open mind with it, because you are learning a totally different language, and that's really what it is. Any RTO out there that offers the TAE, some are done face-to-face, some are done webinars. My honest opinion is don't do it all online, because you need that support. You really do. But doing it, the 1 week on webinars or whatever whatever works for you, whatever works in with your schedule, really, because it is going to be a big part of what you're going to be doing maybe for 6 to 7 months to get that qualification. But once you get it, it's the world's your oyster, and then you just keep going. But you need that certificate for in training and assessment. You've got to have that to be able to teach this any vocational education course.
Can I add to that while you get your TAE, it is the qualification that you obtain. One thing that I have seen through my experience of mentoring educators is that you need to find a mentor in that space, because that first year of educating, it is a completely different skill set. You're going from doing on the tools and looking after yourself, and next minute you're a politician of the classroom. You're the leader of the classroom, but you're not only just a leader of the classroom, you're a counsellor, you've got to manage the biggest part of teaching is managing the classroom and making sure students are engaged. And the best way to learn is from a mentor that is experienced in educating. So my recommendation would be that while you're getting your TAE, that you find a mentor and you shadow them. And yes, it may mean that you're sitting in a classroom not getting paid, but it pays off eventually if you're being mentored and job shadowing a really experienced educator.
Agreed. Totally agree.
So where does RPL come into this? So for the guys who have already done a bit of instruction in the industry, is it worth them going down that pathway, or just go in kind of blank slate?
As a TAE or the course itself?
For the TAE.
I would say blank slate, Paul. With you could possibly do a bit of RPL. But let me tell you about RPL, because that was one of my previous jobs. Sometimes it's more difficult than actually just doing the qualification and the assessments itself. You've got to go and get a lot of evidence to prove your competence. And if you haven't been collecting evidence along the way, then you will want to kind of curl up in the corner and cry. It probably would be easier to do the learning and assessment pathway.
TAE is really not recommended. RPLing
No.
the actual qualification that we're talking about, yes, there are certain aspects of that definitely you RPL, but TAE, no, it's not worth it.
Yeah, not worth it.
So if we go back talking about the actual qualification for systems integrators, Christina, I'll ask you, since you kind of sit in a position where you oversee a whole bunch of qualifications, what would success actually look like in terms of enrollment numbers or participation in the kind of the first year? Like, what's realistic to aim for?
That's a great question. And what would success look like to me? Success would look like to me that for this qualification in it, because we're starting at zero, it would be that we are able to get your qualification onto at least one jurisdictional funding list to start that snowballing effect. And then in terms of enrolments, because it is a bit of a niche area, I would say getting 2 or 3 cohorts in through the year in that first year. So you're looking at, if I think about trade training, minimum of, a class is about 14 students. So, no more than 50 students in that first year. It gives you an opportunity to then refine your delivery, because that first year will be, does this work? Where's the gaps? Updating my assessment and learning materials because, that didn't work real well and that didn't make sense and we need to fix that. So you don't want too many students being confused by I always thought when you go through a transition or a new qual that first year is a real test case scenario. And that those poor students were your guinea pigs. And so I would say no more than 50 if you're really aiming for a number. But for me, success would look like we get at least one jurisdictional funding attached to it. And then we start to see students going through. And actually the success measure for me is, once you've got students in, is actually sitting down with the students at the end of their first year and going, what do you think? And the employers, what do you think? That's what we need to make sure that the students and the employers are at the center of our success measures, because if they love it, you know that you'll get more people coming through the door.
So based on that then, and say we get to the end of the first year, we sit down with the students, the employers, they have feedback. How difficult of a process is it to update content? Because, historically for our side of the industry, it's not been great, but it hasn't been handled very well. But moving forward, is it an easy process for us to update as needed, or is it going to be a similar drawn out kind of process?
We work within a framework. So now I'll be a politician again. We work within a framework. The training product organising framework, and depending on where that unit sits within the qualification, it could be a really quick fix, or it could be that I have to bring you all back together and we go through this process again. The reality though, Paul, is that we've done so much hard work on trying to get this right now, that if we do need to go through and update certain parts of units in the curriculum, the documents, the training product documents, it won't be as long as it needs to be this time. But the way that we've written the training products is that we're writing it so that the likes of Paul and other RTOs and trainers out there have the ability to still meet their compliance requirements, but be flexible in their approach. So I'm hoping that we get this 90% right, and it's a little bit of tweaking on the curriculum side of things, not the training side of things.
And the curriculum was also future-proofed in a lot of what we've done too. So technology does improve every day, but the way that we've actually written a lot of it is we have future-proofed it, and the actual any changes that need to be done can be done in the learning material. The assessment really, in principle, doesn't change much, and maybe the practical, maybe you just got to go through and teach a little bit different in the practical, but the outcome is still the same. So it is a future-proofed way that we've done it, and that's what's taken the time in getting it future-proof. And that's actually in credit to PSO and the Jobs and Skills Councils. That's exactly the way it was supposed to be, that we need to future-proof it. Other than maybe the cyber guys that are doing with the FSO, they may, have a few problems getting to where we need to be because cyber is definitely changing. But with what we're doing, it's a lot of it, it's future-proofed. It shouldn't be a problem.
So I guess next steps from here, as we said, it kind of falls back onto industry to support and get behind the program. From the conversations that you've been having with the regulatory bodies, I mean, where does the smart home industry or where does system integration industry fall on the priority list? I mean, how receptive are the regulators to what we're doing? And I mean, how realistic or how confident are we to say that this is happening?
Look, I think there's a lot of interest in this sector of the industry. Everyone is aware that there is a lot of automation and integration technology occurring out there already. And informally, people are being trained in that through, supplier non-accredited training. So I think there is a lot of interest in there moving forward. I think for your industry, like if we think about the electricians, for argument's sake, having skill sets to be able to cross-skill into this sector is going to be fantastic because it gives them a bite-sized chunk without having to do the whole qualification. So I think the way that we're designing this, people will take notice and people will really think, if that's the skills I need for the future, then I think generally that personally, I think it's the skills of the future and we need to, I think people will get behind it. But time will tell, Paul.
Yeah, exactly. a lot of the skill sets that I've looked at too, when we looked at them, is I've got the privilege of actually working with electrical apprentices at the moment and just asking them, what are you doing? And then working out what do we need to do. The biggest skill set that I can still see is going to be assistive technology. Because we are meeting the current federal government's requirements. But part of the federal government's requirement is to keep everybody, as many people as we can, out of aged care. Mm-hmm. And by leaving the people in their homes, then how do we do that? There is not enough integrators out there who really know how to do it properly. And that's what we've been fortunate to have that collaboration that we've done with the University of Sunshine Coast into be able to do that. So we're coming from a sector where there's nothing and we're now giving them something. And I really think that is our biggest advantage. And I actually believe, not think, it's believe that that's going to be where a lot of the upskilling is going to be from existing people or electricians moving into that space.
I think the good news is we'll have Michelle Verdonk from University of Sunshine Coast on the show in a couple of weeks as well to talk a little bit more about the research and obviously her involvement in this group as well, because it has been a pretty big focus for what we're working on. Just want to clarify one thing with the skill sets. For any, say, electrician who goes into one of these skill sets, will that count towards the student total, or is that treated separately?
Separately.
Damn.
It depends. So I say separately, it depends. It depends on how the RTO sets it up. Okay. So those units will sit in the qualification. They must. It's a requirement of our framework that any unit that sits in a skill set has to have a home. We call them homes, and qualifications are their homes. If they don't sit in a home, guess what we call them? Orphan units. How sad is that? We don't want orphan units out there. And it comes back to funding again. So if the skill sets are funded, then you'll be able to get the numbers, qual versus skill sets. If the skill sets aren't funded, but the qualification is, what you'll see is more people being enrolled into the qualification over here for particular units of competency. And so you'll start to see larger numbers for particular units that would generally linked to a skill set, but because there's funding attached here, we can get the student doesn't have to pay, but if they went down the skill set pathway, they would have to pay. So there's a few things that we've got to balance out when we're looking at that side of things.
Okay. So I guess we are out of time. I don't want to keep you longer than I said I would. But to wrap up, I guess, is there one thing from each of you that someone who's listened to this podcast the entire way through that you kind of want them to do within the next month or so before we get to the point of actually being able to roll out and open for enrollments?
You can go first, Christina.
Oh, look, I think once we get the qualification up for initial feedback, so at the end of August going into September, the industry will get its first view of the qualification and the units of competency through our website. And we're doing that on purpose to ensure that we get it right. So get on there and have a look and provide us with feedback. And then in December through to March, it's official review period again. So you'll get to see it again. I say get involved in that. I say as an industry, get behind this qualification and start thinking about how you can get upskill your technicians, how you can support the RTOs in terms of getting ready to deliver. That's my big key message.
It's a matter of we need to get it out there, which is one of the reasons why we're doing the product launching at Integrate. But one of the reasons why we push this forwards is to make people aware that we actually have a program, because not everybody's going to be looking at the PSO website, and the comments that I'm getting already is, where do I find more information? And it's always go back to PSO, you'll get it from there. It's a matter of getting that information out there, which is why we're doing the announcement of, hey guys, there is a program, let's start looking at it, and then having the manufacturers starting that conversation. We're still probably 12 months away, legitimately 12 months away from any kind of launch of an official program. So in that 12 months, we've got time for manufacturers to work with us to be able to get the practicals right. We've got enough time to get the educators up to skill, and just getting everybody ready, and then we're ready to go. We are starting from scratch. We had something, there was only one RTO in the last, 10 years, I think, that had it on scope, and they only had it on scope for 6 months because they had a project, and then it disappeared again. So it's a matter of, it's been there. The Cert 4, it isn't spoken about a lot, but the Cert 4 is the more advanced, and that is, we're taking over one that was the Cert 4 in audiovisual, and we're redoing it to Cert 4 system integration. And that's where your specialties come from. And that's really where everybody, sets everybody apart. So it's going to work. It has to work. the guidance that we've had from everybody so far, and we have relied on a lot of guidance because we don't want to get it wrong. We just can't afford to get it wrong. We get it wrong this one, we're never going to get another chance. So we've got to do it right, and that's exactly what we've done. And I'm thankful for everybody that's contributed to it. I really am, because it's been a huge group effort. The SME group that we've had some interesting conversations over the while it's been there. And it's taken a lot of education on those guys because they're not educators. So we're trying to develop something that is an education product, and everybody's looking at it from their side of things. But we've now got everybody on side, and it's been a brilliant process. You know, those SME meetings have just been really good, and the extra meetings that we've had outside of there, the engagement and everybody understanding what we're doing, that's what sets this apart. It really does. We're able to bring everybody together. So it's been brilliant.
I really appreciate what you guys have done. I really appreciate the SMEs that have been involved in this. PSO could not have delivered this the updates to these qualifications without that input. We are not the experts, and it's a real credit to your industry for coming together like you have and supporting us in getting the qualifications that will be that you need for your workforce. So I am forever grateful. I'm really proud of what we've done. And I'm really excited about the stuff that we've achieved, especially for, the vulnerable people in our communities. And it really warms my heart knowing that we've done something that can help the community.
Christina said something right at the end there that I want to repeat, because it's an invitation, and I don't think everyone will hear it that way. She said PSO could not have delivered this without industry, that they're not the experts, we are, which is a lovely thing to be told right up until you work out what that commits us to. What Christina, Paul, and the wider SME group have built is a draft. It's not something you can enrol in yet. Nobody's delivering it. Nobody holds it, and there's no funding attached to it in any state or territory. Until there is, Christina put the cost at somewhere north of $20,000 a student. No one's paying that. So 3 things. 1, when PSO puts the draft up for feedback, which will be very soon, go and read it and respond. It's the same 4 minutes that you needed for the survey, and it works the same way. 2, educators. Christina's test is not years served. It's whether you actually like teaching people. And Paul made the point that you don't have to come off the tools to do it. 1 day, 1 module, the part you're good at. You will need a certificate for in training and assessment. And they both said the same thing about it. Do the course. Don't try to RPL your way through it. 3, if you're a manufacturer, your training already exists. It can be mapped to the performance evidence in these units. That group has met once, but it needs more of you in it. 12 months from now, this is either a qualification with students in it, or it's a document. Other Paul put it about as plainly as it can be put. Get this one wrong, and we don't get another go. In a couple of weeks, I'm joined by Michelle Verdonk from the University of the Sunshine Coast on the assistive technology research sitting underneath a great deal of what we've included in the modules. But for now, keep an eye on Master Integrator's social channels. Some very big announcements are on the way. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my sponsors for making this episode possible and all of the work we're doing. ADI Global, Blue Sound by Amber Technology, Somfy, Colosseum, and Connected Magazine. Thanks for listening to Master Integrator. I'm Paul Skelton. I'll see you next time.